Finishing songs is not about inspiration. We need some other things to draw on to help us get to that finish line. And in this video, what I want to share with you are 5 things that I lean on time and time again to really help me when that initial spark of inspiration has kind of fizzled out and it's time to engage some other tools, techniques, processes, and even like mental models of how I think about the songwriting process that really help me get a song past that finish line. Before we dive into these 5 strategies, I think it's really important to understand when each of these 5 strategies is most useful. And in my mind and experience, I really think about the songwriting process like a cocktail glass. Now, it's really more of a funnel, but I like to think of it as a cocktail glass because it's more fun. And if we look at the cocktail glass, at the very top of the cocktail glass is where a song idea starts. Those are the little popping bubbles of inspiration or ideas, and this can honestly be anything. This can be a snippet of melody, it might be a cool slogan on a billboard, it might be something a character said in a TV show that you're watching, it might just be an interesting word or image or moment. Any songwriter is asked frequently, do you start with the music or the lyrics first? And the answer is just yes. It's not either or. It can be one, it can be the other. Everyone has their own thing. It's not really that instructive about the songwriting process to ask where the song starts. It's much more interesting for songwriters especially to understand what happens after that initial bubble of inspiration. And that's when we move down the cocktail glass. And it's really at this point where the glass reaches that small little squeeze point where we get our first 3 strategies. And the first 3 strategies that I employ at this point in the songwriting process, which is to say after I've had an initial idea, after I've played around with it a bit and I've developed upon it and I maybe have a section or 2 sections of a song, but I'm kind of stuck in the songwriting process, this is where these first 3 of 5 strategies comes into play. And these 3 strategies here are finding a title, choosing a song map, and deciding on a song form. So those are the first 3 that I'm going to cover. And then we're going to come to the last 2, which very frequently, for me, come further down the process. It's after I've made those first 3 decisions and I'm still a little bit stuck before the finish line is when I engage these last 2 strategies. And honestly, the final strategy here is by far the most powerful strategy for finishing every song. So stick with me as we head towards that last strategy. So strategy number 1 that I employ all the time is finding a title. And when I talk about a title in songwriting, I'm not actually talking about what a song is called. What a song is called, its label in the Spotify playlist is not actually part of the song itself. When I think about title as a songwriter, I'm really talking about that short phrase that repeats throughout the song and really captures the essential meaning, image, or peak emotion, the central metaphor or the core message that I'm trying to convey. And when something sticks out to me as a title, it's usually something that I feel like I can actually approach from multiple different angles. That's when something really stands out to me as a title. So one of the things that I like to do as a songwriting strategy is decide on the title, choose a title now, because it's in choosing a title that we put a limitation around the idea. It's when we're saying this song is about this one thing and I'm going to go narrow and deep into this one thing rather than staying in this broad, open, experimental stage where the song could still be about anything and everything. Choosing a title helps us anchor the song in one thing and one thing only. And in making that decision, we create momentum. Decisions beget decisions. But the important thing is this. In choosing a title, we're not contractually obliged to stick with that title. And very frequently, I find what happens is it's in choosing a title that I create a certain momentum with the songwriting, that it drives the song forward. It becomes clearer what this song is about. And in making the next decision and driving it forward, often I'll come up with an even better title. But I would never have gotten there had I not put a flag in the sand and said, this is the title of this song. Strategy number 2 is to make a song map. And I've gone into quite a bit of detail about song maps in some other videos, which I will include as links in the show notes. So I'm not going to go into full detail here, but my intention is to give a summary of the concept and really explain why it's so helpful and to point you to some other free resources that you can access. So a song map in essence is very much like an essay plan, which sounds a bit dry, but stick with me. So a song map is an outline of how your song will start, develop, and climax, essentially. The other way we can think of it is really the beginning, middle, and the end of the song. And there are many different song maps that we can apply, and I'll give you a few examples in a moment. But some of the reasons that a song map is so helpful is that it really gives you direction for your entire song. So if you ever have the experience of, you're writing a song line by line and you're getting stuck, a lot of the time the reason we get stuck is because we're just sort of feeling around in the dark. We don't really know what the end point is or where we're trying to get to. So we're just kind of randomly taking different pathways and making the next decision and then the next decision, rather than actually having a vision for where the song is headed. So a song map really helps us stop being kind of line by line songwriters and really helps us just go, okay, the function of this section is this, and the function of the next section is going to be this other thing, and I already know what that is, so I can meaningfully write this section knowing where it's headed. It gives your song direction. And the other really important thing that it does, especially if you have a song title in mind, is a song map helps you pre-plan to a certain extent how each section is going to arrive at your title. And even more than that, how each section is going to approach that title that's repeating, but approach it in a slightly different way. And another concept I've talked about quite a lot on the channel is this idea of verse development, and the idea that we don't just want our verses to be saying the same thing dressed up in different language. We really want to be progressing the emotional idea to different places and to new places. And ideally, we really want that title to have a different emotional resonance every time someone hears it. And that's the core creative challenge for songwriters, particularly when we're talking about lyric writing. It's this idea that we're going to repeat something, and we sort of know for various reasons that the repetition of an idea, whether it's through a chorus or a refrain line or just kind of a repeating hook, something like that, but that repetition is really important. The challenge is, how do we make that repetition have increasing value rather than decreasing value through repetition? How do we make the repetition feel like it's going further and deeper every time rather than becoming more and more shallow each time? And a song map is incredibly important and incredibly valuable tool that I honestly use in every single song I write. So a free resource that I want to point you to is a song map template that I have created as a simple one-page PDF. And the template really includes some very pointed guiding questions that will really help you craft song development and really help you think about the journey of your song before you even necessarily sit down to write any individual lyrics. It's very much the idea of seeing the forest for the trees and not getting completely lost in that forest, but having a sense of direction, having a map, a pathway through before you dive in. The third strategy in our cocktail glass method is deciding on a song form. So this is something that I find really, really helpful. And again, it's not about saying this is what it's going to be and I'm not going to change it. It's actually just about making a decision that's going to help you make the next decision and then help you make the next decision after that. Understanding that the more direction and momentum you have with your song, the more clarity you have. And the more clarity you have, ironically or paradoxically, the more flexibility you will have in actually creating different variations or diverting from that decision that you made. So one basic decision I will make at the outset at this point in the cocktail glass process is this song a song with a chorus or is this a song without a chorus? And if it's a song without a chorus, what kind of non-chorus song form am I going to be writing in, right? If there's a refrain line that is going to replace the function of a chorus, and a refrain line very simply is a line of lyric and melody that repeats in 2 or more verse sections. And it actually sounds like the hook, like Yesterday by the Beatles, even Blackbird by the Beatles, titles like Still Crazy After All These Years by Paul Simon, like The Mother by Brandi Carlile, like so many songs. The list is kind of endless. So the other kinds of questions that I'll then ask, if that's the direction I'm going to go, is, is the refrain line the first line of the section, or is it the last line of the section? There's this basic decision that is helpful to me, and hopefully will be to you as well, to make here, which is, what is this song form? So either way we go, song with a chorus, song without a chorus, there are many, many variations within each of those kind of pathways that we can take. But making that simple decision can really help, again, create a sense of momentum and clarity. For example, if I decide it is a song with a chorus, one of the things that I might then do is sit down and write the chorus if I haven't already done so. Understanding basic song forms and basic song form variations is really important as a songwriter and in your development as a songwriter, because if we can't hear the difference between songs that have a chorus and songs that don't have a chorus but have other things going on, it's really hard to name what's going on. And generally when you can't name what's going on, it's very hard to then use those tools and techniques in your own songwriting. So being able to analyze other people's songs and song forms especially is really, really important. And it's way beyond the scope of this particular video. But we have made a short course, which is honestly as cheap as chips for the value that you will get. And that short course is called The 5 Most Powerful Songwriting Exercises. And I'll include a link to that in the notes. One of those exercises is all about song form analysis. And it's not just about what kinds of sections exist, it's also about variations, different permutations of song form, and even magnifying in on things like how many bars are inside certain sections. Because when you dive into an analysis like that, even in a song like Someone Like You by Adele, what you start to see is, even though on the surface it looks like a totally standard song form, that there are these really interesting variations happening inside the sections that make it feel really interesting and dynamic and not at all static and boxy, even though it's a totally standard pop song format. So definitely check that out if you're interested in a more in-depth analysis of song form. So at this point in my cocktail songwriting process, even after I've decided on a title, I've got a song map, I've decided on the song form, and I've progressed past that initial stage of kind of losing the spark of inspiration, but still moving ahead on the song with the help of that map and the help of the kind of shape of the song form, sometimes I still get stuck, which is to say, sometimes when we engage those elements of craft, we actually lose the buzz of inspiration. And sometimes I want that back, right? Like I want the feeling of being inspired and having interesting new novel ideas kind of burst into my mind. I don't want it all to be about craft in that last stage. I think songwriting is such a fascinating blend of inspiration and craft, of intuition and discipline, but both things, all these elements are really important to the songwriting process. So I find I often get stuck there when I'm too much inside the craft and I've lost that sense of maybe sparkle is the way that I feel it in my body. And this is when I engage these last 2 strategies that really help me move a song all the way down to the bottom of that cocktail glass and to the finish line. So the first of these strategies is what I call invite invisible mentors. So I really think of the songwriters that I love and admire, like Joni Mitchell and Paul Simon and Bill Withers and Marvin Gaye and all kinds of other songwriters that you would probably never expect. This is when I invite them into the room as my invisible mentors. I think of these songwriters as people that I can learn from when I'm listening like a songwriter, not just like a consumer of music. So this strategy is a really deliberate strategy. It's not about passive listening to music. It's about active, immersive listening. So often what I'll do is I'll turn on a playlist of songs or songwriters that I love, and I will listen actively like that. And I find when I'm listening actively and really holding the song that I'm writing in mind, I find it almost impossible not to get sparks of ideas flying. So I really encourage you to try this if you don't already, is to make listening and immersive listening part of your songwriting process. And as a little extra hint, a thing that I will also chuck into my songwriting process here that is a guaranteed way for me to come up with ideas that also feel like they have that crackle of inspiration is to do this immersive listening while going for a very vigorous walk or even a run. And there is something about the combination of oxygenating the brain, engaging in bilateral movement of the body, which I think also creates neural crossover, like the firing of neural pathways across the corpus callosum, which is that little middle bridge between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and then the input of listening to music. There is something that then kind of creates that firework effect for me. And I am that awkward person who's running around an oval, breathing heavily into my iPhone because I'm having so many ideas. But I just keep doing my laps, keep getting little ideas and moments of inspiration, and keep breathing them heavily into my iPhone, and it all works out in the end. And that brings us to strategy number 5, which is by far the most powerful strategy that any human being can engage in order to get work done, get it done frequently, regularly, and consistently. And this strategy is all about seeking out a deadline. So having a deadline for your work, there is just some magic psychological alchemy that happens when there is a deadline. Now, the thing is, it's no use going, I'm going to finish that song by Friday, because that's kind of a fake deadline. It's so easy to break our own self-imposed deadlines. Deadlines are most powerful when they're kind of set by other people, when there are other people involved. So it's really the combination of the deadline plus having an accountability partner or an accountability group. And I've learned this lesson, I think, throughout my life. I have been in situations and circumstances where there's a lot of that kind of structure and accountability and deadlines, like going to music school. And I think that's a lot of the reason why people do things like that. Enrolling in a course, enrolling in a class, going to a workshop, or enrolling in a songwriting group is a great way to engage in that kind of structure and accountability that has deadlines embedded inside of it. So we now run songwriting groups 5 times a year, and anyone is welcome to join. So those songwriting groups are 8 weeks rather than kind of ongoing, and it's not a song every week because that can feel very relentless if you're someone who has a full-time job or you have kids or you have family or caring responsibilities. So the cadence of those groups is a song prompt every 2 weeks. So over the course of 8 weeks, you write 4 new songs, and those groups are small. So you're allocated to a group of 8 other songwriters, which really fosters a sense of team spirit and group dynamic, and you really get to know the other people in your group. So those are available to any songwriters around the world, and if you're interested in more information or interested in registering for those, please check out the link below in the show notes. I wish you all the best for finishing your songs this year, and if there are any other tools, techniques, methods, or processes that you use that help you reliably finish your songs that are a combination of craft and inspiration, please let us know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.